Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we're continuing our ongoing coverage of the war between the Russian Federation, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and its Ukrainian proxy forces. Now, today, we're starting with the deep state map, looking at Kurkova. Now, the deep state map would have you believe that there is continued ongoing fighting. Obviously, the area in the orange is controlled by Russian forces. The area in the light white or grayish color is areas in which there is ongoing fighting or it is disputed territory. Now, if we jump over to the Rondelli Foundation, and again, generally speaking, this mapping service is also, for the most part, Ukrainian supportive. The Rondelli Foundation receives, I'm not going to go into that. I use the map, it supports Ukraine, and this is what the Rondelli Foundation shows, which is essentially Kurkova under the complete control of Russian forces. There are some areas here just on the western outskirts of the town, of the city, that according to this map have not coming under Russian control. Now, with that being said, clearly you have a formed pocket in which Ukrainian forces are essentially surrounded with Russian forces to the north, Russian forces to the east, and Russian forces to the south and southwest, with one road out of town, which is covered by heavy artillery fire and obviously Russian air assets as well. So, very difficult situation for any Ukrainian forces trapped in this pocket. We'll go back over to the deep state map and we'll kind of look at what has transpired over the course of the last few days. So, as I've talked before, incredibly difficult situation for Ukrainian forces. The Hanavika pocket, this area here, as we had discussed before, gone, crushed. And then Russian forces start the encirclement of remaining Ukrainian forces that have been ejected from Kurkova. And that's where we stand right now. At the same time, Russian forces are continuing to push in its envelopment operation around Pokrovsk. That operation continues. Let's go back and kind of look at what has happened over the course of the last few days. So clearly, the Russians continue to move forward. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of a sidetrack here. And I want to give you, the viewer, some names of companies that are operating or have been operating inside of the Ukraine. Now, these are heavily funded Western, either from the United States or Western European companies. Now, as I read these companies off to you, ask yourself what they all have in common. Here we go. Access Group Limited, Biomedica CRO, Biosense, the BTU Center, Benta, Bioengineering Clarion, Biolab Tech, the Biona Group, CT Systems Corporation, Enzyme Argo, East West Biopharma, Educoin.biz, Genomics UA, Biotech Limited, MSD Ukraine, MyHelix Incorporated, Mobius LLC, Oleland, Stoller Ukraine, Vitality Biotech. So what are these companies? They are all biotechnology research firms. So then the question is why are these biotechnology research firms operating in the beacon of democracy known as the Ukraine? Corruption, and lack of governmental oversight, regulation. These biotechnology companies are able to go into the Ukraine. They are able to establish testing facilities and they are obviously able to do things in terms of conducting biological tests that they can't do in other regulated Western nation states. The beacon of democracy. The beacon of biotech research, the Ukraine. Now look, there has been all kinds of stories that have come out of the Ukraine in regards to biotech and the possible research of bioweapons. Now, is that going on? Is it still going on in the beacon of democracy? Tough to say, but in all probability, they're still there, and they're still doing what they're doing. Now, I keep saying the beacon of democracy. And I must say, I do say that in jest. When was the last election in the Ukraine? Anybody? What was it, 2019? 2019? 6 years ago? 6 years ago. Last election. With no election in the future. Really interesting to see what happened in the Ukraine. You can see the encroachment of neoliberalism, and you can see in terms of how the election took place, in which Zelensky was quote unquote elected into office. Early picture of the man himself. This is his Sean Penn days as an actor on stage. Continue on with another. Oh, I got to get rid of that quick. All right. Yeah. YouTube really does not like this picture. And if I put that up there for any length of time, I risk the purple-haired censors from San Francisco censoring our content. Here's another picture. I don't see why this would be offensive. I don't see why this would be censored. So please, if you are a purple-haired San Franciscan getting ready to demonetize or censor my content, it's just a picture of a man with his mouth open. That is all. But in 2019, this individual was allegedly elected, and he has henceforth remained in power. And then finally, here we are. Now, is that really him in office, or is that a TV show? Is it TV or is it real? Remember, he portrayed the president of the Ukraine in a TV show. Interesting how that works. There's a fairly concerted movement here in the United States in which actors have considered running for president. I got to say that depending on the actor, and if they were to run for president, and understanding the uninformed urbanites that exist here in the United States, some call it the un-United States, that in fact, given the actor, we could find ourselves here in the USA having an actor running the show. Oh, real quick, let's get it. All right, back to there. There we go. That couldn't possibly be censored by the purple and pink-haired San Franciscan. Hopefully not. And then back to the deep state map. Yep, the beacon of democracy. Who would have thunk it? Who would have imagined, going back to the actor days, that guy would be leading his country into perpetual war against the Russians? Would anybody in their right mind in the Ukraine have voted for that if they knew what was going to happen? I don't know, probably not. But that is what happens when you dumb down your society with neoliberalism and popular culture and presentation takes over a country with some fairly nefarious strings being pulled in the background as well. And yeah, we have it here in the United States too. But for the Ukrainians, again, I don't see any end in sight. I really don't. If you look at how things are being positioned right now in terms of a possible ending of the conflict, the two sides are so far apart. There is still talk about the entity that remains of the borderlands that would become part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. I don't see how the Russians are going to allow that. I really don't. And on the flip side, the group that is running the Ukraine right now would essentially have to leave power, because I don't believe they are going to accept a condition in which there is an exchange for territory for the stoppage of the conflict. Because their view is, well, in the near-term future or long-term future, they believe that the Russians could re-enter the Ukraine. Now, again, that the ability for the Ukrainians to rearm in a fantastic manner is going to be omnipresent. And again, you could look at it on the flip side as well from the Russians, that even if the Ukrainians don't join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, they are still going to be rearmed by NATO. They are, in a sense, going to become, which they already are, a proxy force of NATO for continued eastward expansion. But the problem is NATO can't expand any more eastward. The only possible way for NATO to expand further, and there's no reason not to believe that NATO won't expand further. I don't believe that NATO cannot expand. I believe that the foundation of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization right now and how it operates, it is required to expand. And that only expansion that could occur outside of Ukraine is further east. Now look, we're seeing right now Georgia. Georgia is migrating away now from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It's coming back into the fold, or at least the sphere of the Russian Federation. So where next? Where does NATO expand next? Is it going to go into Armenia? Well, that's going to be tough to do because of the Turks. So that's probably something that would never occur. So the only option for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization would be a disruption in Belarus. That could be option number one. And then finally, the eventual attempt to break up the Russian Federation, to foment and or create disruptive forces inside of actually Russia that would look to achieve an actual breakup of what now exists of the Russian Federation. And I believe that's what the Russians fear, and I think rightfully so. NATO has proven that it is incapable of self-imposing self-restraint in moving east. But again, I don't believe NATO, other than name, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, other than name, has become something else. I think the name, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, creates this sense of a limit. That NATO is only designed for a defensive purpose in the sphere of the North Atlantic area of operations. But we know that is simply not the case. Go talk to Gaddafi. Oh, wait, you can't. How about the Serbian leaders? Yep, probably not. Probably not. Serbia is not in the North Atlantic sphere of operations. Again, remember, NATO was designed to prevent a Soviet invasion of Western Germany. Fast forward from the 80s to where we are now. Actual Soviet republics in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Non-North Atlantic nation states. Romania, Hungary, Croatia, Slovenia, inside of NATO. So do the Russians have a reason to be concerned? Of course they do. I think if you change the name, from NATO to something more befitting. Now, I don't know what that name is. Let's hear it in the comment section. What should be the new, more legitimate name of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization? I'm sure we're going to get all kinds of interesting acronyms. So let's hear it. Again, what's a befitting name for NATO? Because it's not really NATO. Really? It's not. It's not. Let's just face it. But as we have talked about, the Russians continue to move forward. The Ukrainian military continues on the verge of collapse And unfortunately, the conflict does not appear to be ending anytime soon, as the war objectives that have got us to this point have not been achieved. And you continue war until those war goals are achieved. More to come as we cover the conflict. As always, thanks for joining us. Have a good day.